So the next step in chapter 3 is going to be looking at the digestive system, and that's what we're going to be looking at for the remainder of the chapter. So let's start with a little overview of the digestive system. And I want to start off with some fun little factoids, some things that you might not know about your digestive system. So, in case you didn't know, an adult's digestive system is about 30 feet long, which is quite amazing. I'm always amazed that I can fit 30 feet of stuff in my little abdominal cavity. So, when we look at that 30 feet, this is kind of how it breaks out. So we have an esophagus, that hollow tube that connects your mouth and your stomach is about 10 inches long. Stomach is kind of the shorter thing out of the whole bit. Your stomach is really not very big, about 8 inches long. And of course, that varies from person to person a little bit, but kind of short. So we're up to 18 inches already. Small intestines are 23 feet long. Keep in mind that they're kind of all coiled up, so it's not like we have a continuous 23 feet that's all stretched out. And then finally, we end up with the large intestine with 5 feet, which sounds like a lot, but keep in mind that if we compare that to a horse, their coiled up intestines are 89 feet long, which is one of the reasons why horses tend to have a lot of problems with their intestines. They end up with a lot of intestinal problems. So we're very happy that we're not a horse. Chewing food takes from 5 to 30 seconds. And I have to say 30 seconds is probably a really, someone has to be very serious about chewing in order to do it for a whole 30 seconds. I find that because we tend to eat really fast, that our chewing, we're lucky if we do it for 5 seconds some of the time. And of course, it depends on what we eat. So we're going to see that obviously a liquid, we don't even chew at all. Swallowing takes about 10 seconds, and again, it might be less than that. So it's not a very long transit time to get from the mouth through the esophagus to the stomach. And again, if it's something that's very liquidy, that could be a second. Food that slashes around and churns around in our stomach and starts to break down in our stomach, it can last about 3 to 4 hours, depending again on what we ate. So we're going to see that some things take longer to digest than others. Things that are more liquidy digest faster. Things that have more protein or fat digest slower than things that are very much carbohydrates. And again, it also depends on how much did I eat. Well, did I just eat a little snack? Did I just have an apple? Well, that's not going to take 4 hours to digest. But if I had a big steak dinner, that could easily take 4 hours to digest. It takes about 3 hours for food to move through your intestines. And then food drying up and hanging out in the large intestine can be at 18 hours to 2 days. So keep in mind that what you eat today is not going to be what you see in the toilet tomorrow as waste products. So remember that it takes a while for things to go through. Now, some people digest faster than others. Some foods digest faster than others, but it does take a while for everything to move through. And in your lifetime, you're going to digest about 50 tons worth of food. So go digestive system. Definitely a workhorse of the body. So let's take a little bit of a time out and look at some definitions, because I've kind of been throwing some things around, but it's helpful to actually get some real definitions of what does it mean to digest? What does it mean to absorb? So digestion, our definition for that, is the process by which large ingested molecules are mechanically and chemically broken down, producing basic nutrients that can be absorbed across the wall of the GI tract. So basically, digestion is we're going to take big hunks of food. So we take a big bite of something. Let's say we're taking a big bite of a banana. And so obviously we can't digest we're not ready to have that be a nutrient to absorb. We need to make that into smaller pieces. So initially the mechanical part is we're physically breaking it down, and then we're going to have a lot of chemicals that are going to break it down even further into the smallest possible parts. So our goal is to have things like individual glucose molecules, or at least simple sugars. We want individual fatty acids, individual amino acids from proteins. So once that's happened, then, we can't take our piece of banana and have it go through the lining of our intestine. It's much too big. But once we get it down into those small kind of subparticles, then we can take that substance from the GI tract and have it either enter the bloodstream or the lymph system, where we'll again transport it. So finally, let's kind of take a little overview of the different parts of our digestive system. And in other videos, I'll go through each one a lot more specifically, but mouth and salivary glands is where things start. Truthfully, we could argue that digestion starts before food even enters our mouth, that just having food present can get things going. But our mouth is going to be where we're going to chew, we're going to taste our food, we're going to lubricate it, and we're actually going to have a little bit of digestion happen, but not a whole lot. Esophagus, really not a lot happening there except to move foods from mouth to stomach. Stomach, we're going to see, is going to be that place that we're going to store food for a little bit. We're going to mix it with some different chemicals, especially acid, and we're going to start that breakdown process of some of our nutrients. You can see our protein is going to be digested, as well as a little bit of fat. We're also going to be having that regulated, so it's not going to go immediately from your stomach to your small intestine. We'll also see that we produce something called intrinsic factor that we need for B12 absorption. Number 4, and we're going to take this a little bit out of order of our digestive tract. So remember, we've got this kind of continuous hollow tube that goes from mouth to esophagus to stomach to small intestine to large intestine. And then we have accessory organs that are attached, but the food never actually travels to number 4, 5, and 6, liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. But it's worth talking about them at this point because they do produce some chemicals that are going to be important as food starts to go from the stomach to the small intestine. So we need a substance called bile to help us to digest fats. So the liver is what's going to produce it, and the gallbladder is going to be what stores it. And then the pancreas is going to be needed to secrete a lot of different things. So we need to neutralize acid that's coming from the stomach. We're going to need to create all sorts of enzymes that we need to break down nutrients. So once we get the signal saying, hey, there's food in the small intestine, the pancreas gets signaled to produce those things. Most of our digestion is going to happen in the small intestine, as well as a lot of the absorption. Large intestine, we're going to see that we have some additional absorption. Not a lot of digestion by that point, maybe a little bit, but we do have some absorption. And then we're also going to be talking about probiotics, those little healthy bacteria in our large intestine. And then finally, we get to the end of the line, our rectum, where we're going to hold feces and then expel them as needed. So that's kind of just a quick little trip through our digestive system. Again, in future videos, we're going to be talking about each one of those organs in a lot more detail.